All right, you're listening to On Deck, presented by Amazing Met Zone. I'm your boy, Phil from Shirley, with my boy, Drew Minotti 82. What up, Drew?
What's happening, Philly? What's going on, man?
We got football about to start. I wanted to talk a little fantasy football rankings. Let's do our own rankings. Top five fantasy QBs going into this year. Um, I want to hear people's list too out there. My number five. It's a quarterback I hate. I hate the Philadelphia Eagles with a passion, but I got to put Jalen Hurts up there. I don't think he's a good QB where he can win games, but he does. But he just puts up stats. Like out of nowhere, you'll see this guy has fantasy numbers and he's putting up a monster game. And you're like, this guy looks like shit the whole time. But he ran for 75, 80, threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for a touchdown. He's got to be on my list. Every time they're within 2 yards, they're tush pushing this fucking guy in the end zone. So number five, Jalen Hurts.
I know the hardest thing, we talked about this earlier, the hardest thing about fantasy is sometimes the best quarterbacks aren't the best fantasy quarterbacks. And my number five is a guy that's hot right now. People are talking about Anthony Richardson. I know he had a tough season last year. He got hurt, but I think he's going to have a monster year this year just because he runs the ball. He can throw the ball. I mean, he had a couple of games last season where he was the best fantasy quarterback in the first like 3 or 4 weeks of the season until he got hurt. Um, but yeah, I think Anthony Richardson's got to be my number five. Everyone's talking about him. And again, these five quarterbacks might not be the most talented, most athletic quarterbacks, but in terms of fantasy, Anthony Richardson's going to get you points because of his rushing attempts. So
Yep.
my number five is Anthony.
Love it. Love it. I could see him having a monster year. If he stays healthy, that's his biggest thing. It's all about health with him. My number four is a guy who I think is the best quarterback in football. I still got to have this guy in my top five rankings because at any point, the guy could throw for 350, 3 touchdowns. I think this team has taken a little bit of more of the running game approach where he's throwing the ball 25 to 30 times a game, and that's Patrick Mahomes. He's always got to be on the top five list. He's too good not to be. My number four, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, lockstep. My number four is Patty Mahomes. Every year you think he's gonna like fall off this list. Like you said, he definitely hands down the best quarterback in the league. But at the same time, like when it comes to fantasy, it's tough, man, because like you said, they're definitely a balanced offense where they run the ball a lot. But it's hard to keep him off this list. At one point I didn't have him on the list, but like I feel like I can't not put Patrick Mahomes on this list. So yeah, my number four is Patrick Mahomes.
Love it. Love it. My number three is a guy who just got a new weapon, and that's like getting a Ferrari. Stefan Diggs going to this team. I got to have CJ Stroud on my list. Houston just took a major step last year. This guy is legit. One of those guys like we were talking about before can run, can throw. The kid slings it, and he's got so many weapons now. Tank Dell, Nico Collins. They just got Joe Mixon in the running game. So CJ Stroud, I'm thinking big things, monster year from him. My number three, CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I know. Making this list is tough. Philly and I would talk about it. We're in the same fantasy league, so I'm we're giving out some of our secrets here. And maybe I left a couple guys off the list on purpose just so Philly doesn't know my strategy. But my number three is Lamar Jackson. Guy's a freak. You got Derrick Henry now, so I know maybe I'll take some of the running off of his plate, but at the same time, the guy is just so good, man. He's just so good. Like it's hard to not put him on the list. He's unbelievable. And he had a lot of naysayers when he got drafted, but now he's showing everyone wrong. Lamar Jackson's definitely my number three.
Love it. I'm going to go right into it. Lamar Jackson's my number two. The guy's a freak. The guy's just, would arguably be my number one. I think the addition of Derrick Henry is going to take a little bit of points away from him where they're going to be running that ball a little bit more in those situations. They did anyway when they had Gus Edwards, but Lamar Jackson is one of those guys where he's going to be criticized all the time until he wins the big game. But we're talking fantasy here, and there's no way Lamar Jackson's not on everybody's top five. My number two, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, my number two is Jalen Hurts. I feel like he might take a step back a little bit, but he's got weapons, man. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. They're freaks. Saquon, I feel like he's got a chip on his shoulder, man. I feel like Saquon's gonna just put in work, and he can catch the ball. Like I feel like he's in the right system, So I feel like Jalen Hurts, he could take a step back, like you said. That tush push, it might not work that much this year without Kelsey there. But I think I got to put Jalen Hurts at my number two.
Yeah, no, I know I hate him so much. That's why I didn't put him higher, but I still had to have him on my list just because, like you're saying, he is too good. But my number one is probably going to be your number one too. It's a guy who I just think he's their whole team. I think this team all year will live and die by his play, and that is Josh Allen. He's going to have a monster year though, because the ball is going to be in his hand all the time. He'll probably be running the ball 10 to 15 times a game, and he'll be throwing it probably 40 times a game. He's going to turn the ball over occasionally, but he's going to have monster game after monster game. So my number one, Josh Allen. Hope the Bills lose in the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, man. Like just as much as it pains you to put Hurts on your list, it pains me to put Josh Allen on this list. Being a Jet fan, um, I'm worried about his weapons. I really am. Like I know he really doesn't have too many. Gabe Davis left, Steph Diggs left, Moss left. So like I think he is, like you said, he's their team. I don't think he really takes too much of a step back because he can run. And he still has Kincaid. He still has Shakir.
Yep.
They drafted Keon Coleman. So yeah, I think Josh Allen's got to be my number one, as much as it pains me to say it. When it comes to fantasy, the guy's a doof. I can't stand. I feel like he's like that Eli Manning.
Yep.
Probably even worse because Eli's at least kind of funny. But yeah, Josh Allen's my number one, and it pains me as a Jet fan to say it, but he's my number one.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, we want to hear everybody's list. Thank you, everybody, for the support. Fantasy football right around the corner. So check this out if you want a little help from your boy, the guru, the fantasy football guru.
Let's go, Jets.
Let's go, Cowboys.